All right, well, thank you for joining us, Mr. Hogan. And I just want to start off, why don't you tell us why you want to be governor, Maryland?
Well, Eli, first of all, thanks very much for having me. It's great to be here on the campus again. Beautiful day, and thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm a small business guy. I've never held elective office. I've been involved for a long time in a lot of issues. I care about what's going on in the state, but I'm a lifelong Marylander who really is fed up with politics as usual in Annapolis. And I feel that the state is way off track and headed in the wrong direction, and that we need a dramatic change of direction in Annapolis, and that's why I decided to run.
What do you see as some of the biggest things that separate you from others in the primary race in the Republican Party right now?
Well, you know, it's funny, most of us agree on a lot of issues in the primary. It's really about who has the most experience to actually be governor and fix the problems of the state, and who has actual chance to win the race in November. My running mate and I, Boyd Rutherford, both served as cabinet secretaries in the Ehrlich administration. We both spent most of our lives in the private sector. So we're the only ticket in either party, Democrat or Republican, where we have real diverse private sector experience as well as the actual experience of running the state government. I think that makes us the most qualified of anybody in the race. We also have put together the most active campaign of any of the other challengers on the Republican side, and all the polls show us winning 2 or 3 to 1 at this point. I just got in the race 60 days ago. We're on par with the fundraising of Anthony Brown. We're ahead of Doug Gansler. And we've done more than all of the other Republican candidates have done over the past 12 months. We did it in 60 days, all of them added together. So I started a group called Change Maryland 3 years ago. It's the largest and fastest growing grassroots citizen organization in state history. It's a nonpartisan group made up of now over 85,000 Republicans, Democrats, and independents who really want to see a change of direction for our state. So I think we've got a terrific chance to win the race, and we're out there working hard every day. We're spending the whole day today here in Wycomico County. My running mate, Secretary Boyd Rutherford, is here. His daughter Kristen goes to school at Salisbury. He's visiting her. My wife is here. All three of us are going in different directions around Salisbury, and we're ending up at a dinner tonight where we'll catch up again later on.
You talked a little bit about some of the competitors on the Democratic side. I want to ask you, as you know, Maryland's a left-leaning state, especially when it comes to elections, but your former boss, Bob Ehrlich, did when he became governor. Right. What makes you think that you can do that as well?
Well, I think the fact that I said I built the largest nonpartisan group in state history. Nearly half of our 85,000 members from every single county in Maryland are Democrats and independents. So it's not really a partisan issue. This isn't just a typical fight between Republicans and Democrats. I think this is a fight for Maryland's future, and it's a fight worth fighting. And I think that we've got support from people who are all across the spectrum who also believe that we're just heading in the wrong direction. They're concerned about the direction of the state, the economy, the fact that we've lost 6,500 small businesses, that we've lost 100,000 jobs. Unemployment is up 76%. And we've had the largest mass exodus of taxpayers fleeing our state of any state in the Mid-Atlantic region, and one of the worst in the nation. We can't continue heading in the same direction, and that's why I'm running. I expect to get a lot of support from Democrats across the state and from independent voters overwhelmingly. We've got polls that actually show I have about a 36% better chance of winning the general election this November than Bob Ehrlich had in 2002. I have about a 30% better chance of beating Anthony Brown than Doug Gansler does. And it's because of what I was just talking about, the frustration people are feeling. 31% of the likely general election voters want to continue heading in the same direction, and 56% want to see a dramatic change of direction for our state. So if they want to change the direction of the state, they're going to have to vote a different kind of leadership, and that's why I'm running. It's an uphill battle. Maryland's a tough state. I have no plans to try to convert Maryland from a blue state to a red state. I just happen to believe that we ought to have an open and honest debate of the issues. We ought to have a healthy, competitive, and strong two-party system. And then you need some checks and balances. When you have a monopoly, as we do in Annapolis right now, a lot of bad things happen. And there's nobody down there, making the other arguments or stopping things from happening.
Let's talk about some of that change. If elected, what would be some of the top things on your agenda?
My primary focus is really on jobs, middle-class families, and turning our economy around. That's the main focus. The statistics I cited just a moment ago are just devastating. So we've increased spending over the past 7 years by $10 billion. which the National Governors Association last year said we increased spending at a rate higher than 46 other states. Only 3 states in the entire country raised spending the way we did. And in order to pay for it, we've passed 40 consecutive tax hikes, which have taken another $9.5 billion out of the pockets of struggling Maryland families and small businesses. It's caused us to lose 10 of our 13 Fortune 500 companies and the 6,500 small businesses and the 100,000 jobs. We had 31,000 people. Our group Change Maryland did a study. Everywhere I went, people were saying to me, as soon as we can sell our house, we're moving. As soon as we can retire, we're leaving the state. As soon as I can find another job. Young people that were coming out of college that couldn't find jobs. My daughter's one of them, left the state to find a job elsewhere. Folks that are my age or a little older are retiring and saying, we really can't stay here on a fixed income. These taxes are killing us. We love the state of Maryland. We like to be near our kids and grandkids, but we can't afford to stay here. So we got to fix that. We've got to get spending under control, and we've got to start to take some of the burden off of struggling families, and we've got to put more people back to work. We've got to attract more businesses to create the jobs. We're no longer competitive with the other states in our region, and we're getting beat by Virginia and all the other states surrounding us.
I want to ask you talk about taxes and bringing jobs back. One, what would you do to bring some of those jobs back to Maryland and keep some of those larger companies here?
Yeah.
And two, how would you ensure that Marylanders don't lose some of the services that they've grown accustomed to because of the tax hikes?
It's a great question. Well, I think there's 3 primary reasons why we're losing the businesses. And the good news is they're all self-inflicted and they can all be corrected. Maryland is a wonderful state. It's got so many great things going for it. We've got an ideal location in the middle of the Mid-Atlantic region, close to Washington and the federal government presence. We've got the Port of Baltimore. We have great universities like the one we were at today, a great school system. We've got an educated workforce. We have a lot of things going for us. But in spite of all those natural advantages, our state economy ranks 44th out of 50 states. That's just unacceptable, so we have to change it. The problem is threefold. Number one, we have an anti-business attitude in the state. They're just very hostile towards the job creators. And people that are in office that say, hey, we're concerned about jobs, but you can't really be concerned about jobs without thinking about the job creators. If they all leave, you don't have the jobs. And we've chased out a lot of these businesses. Every single Fortune 500 company in Baltimore has left in the past 7 years, and 10 of the 13 statewide. So we've got to change that attitude. That would change on day one in our administration. I've spent my life bringing hundreds of companies and thousands of jobs to Maryland. That's what I do in my real life. And I'm a business owner that started a business 25 years ago that does economic development that brings companies and jobs to the state. So that's kind of what I've been focused on. I'm a small businessman myself. I understand how these actions are affecting people in the real world. But change the attitude, number one. Appoint a new cabinet with a new focus on saying, how do we really help keep more families and more businesses in Maryland? And how do we attract more families and businesses to want to come to Maryland? And two is the tax structure. We have a really onerous tax policy here. We don't need to be the cheapest, lowest taxes in the country, but we can't afford to be the highest. Right now, we're the 7th highest tax burden in the United States. And we're higher than any of the other states in our region, so people are making decisions based on pocketbook issues. Both companies and big companies and small businesses and individual homeowners and taxpayers and families are making decisions about where to locate based on those numbers. So we've got to try to rein in the spending. I think we can do that without harming, in some cases, improving the services that we're providing. People sometimes say, well, if you cut taxes, then we automatically have to lop off entire departments or stop providing services. I happen to think that our state government is really inefficiently run, and that we have people that are incompetent, that aren't doing a good job of managing the state. And there have been independent outside audits, over 300 of them, done by the federal government and by the Department of Legislative Services, which is a nonpartisan group from the legislature that oversees the things going on in the executive branch, that found more than $1 billion worth of waste that they've already identified. And we think there's even more, and we want to do independent outside audits of every single state agency, not to decide what are we going to get rid of, but how can we run this more efficiently, more cost effectively, so we can provide better services to the people that need them. And I think it can be done for less money, and you can still do a better job.
I want to ask you about a couple hot button issues that we see in the news now that the legislature is dealing with, and one of them being the decriminalization of marijuana. You know, the governor has said that he would sign a bill that would decriminalize it in the state. What's your take on that? Where do you stand on?
Well, first of all, I think it's, I don't know why we're focused on issues like that instead of worrying about trying to put people back to work. There's all these diversions and things that they're focused on in Annapolis that they really ought to be worried about. The families we're losing, the jobs we're losing, and the businesses we're losing. But on decriminalization, I think we ought to really go slow on this. I understand the motivation. I understand you don't want to take a young person with a small amount of marijuana and ruin their life by, putting them in the criminal justice system. That makes sense to me. On the other hand, I don't want to, I don't think it makes sense for us to really be encouraging people to be getting high and making it easier for people to buy drugs and to, so I think we ought to really be cautious and go slow and see what happens in these other couple of states that have gone through legalization and see what kinds of problems, are that they haven't anticipated yet. I think we just kind of rushed it through without much debate at the end of the legislative session, without much input. And I think we ought to go cautious on that issue.
I think it brings up the point of, if elected, you'd be working with a Democratic legislature. Yeah. How do you think you would work with them?
I think I would work well with them. My focus in this group Change Maryland has been a nonpartisan focus. And for 3 years I've been talking about the fact that I'm really fed up with Republicans and Democrats, and I think most people are. And people are wondering, why can't these guys just sit down at a table and come up with common sense solutions to solve the problems instead of all the partisanship and all the fighting? That's what I'm all about. That's why I formed a nonpartisan group, and that's why half of our members are Democrats. But I think we need to reach across the aisle and argue the issues, but sit down and try to come up with common ground and common sense solutions to the problems. When I was a cabinet secretary in the Ehrlich administration, I dealt with an overwhelmingly Democratic legislature for 4 years. President of the Senate, Mike Miller, and I talked almost every single day. I was responsible for 7,300 appointments to all three branches of government, and 1,860 of them required confirmation by the Senate, which is overwhelmingly Democrat. And we had 1,859 unanimous confirmations through the Senate. So a lot of it is just how you treat people. And you respect the other side and the people that disagree with you, but you don't have to treat them as enemies. And it ought to be where you can go down and passionately argue for the things you believe in, and then the other side does too, and you try to find that common ground, and then you're friends afterwards. When you play a basketball game, the game's over, you shake hands. You guys might go out and have fun together afterwards. You're on a different team. That doesn't mean. I don't like the really rancor and the anger and the real heavy partisanship that's going on either side right now. And it's something I'd like to put an end to.
You mentioned that you had a daughter that just finished school, and your running mate has one in school. What do you have to say to students and parents of graduating college students that are dealing with student loans and even going into college, looking at the tuition rates?
Yeah, well, it's several different issues in there. Number one, first of all, what I feel for the kids that are coming out of college right now. I went through this with our daughter. Lots of my friends have. A lot of your probably friends that are a couple of years older are finding, the unemployment situation is untenable. It's gone up 76% since we were running the state government in 7 years. We've lost 100,000 jobs. The highest percentage of unemployment is in young people, and kids are coming out of college with a great education. With lots of ability and skills and a bright future ahead of them. They can't find jobs here. That's one thing that we've got to fix, and that fits right into our primary message. We're also finding kids that are, families that are struggling, and the kids are struggling with their student loans. They haven't found a job. They're back home living with mom and dad. And mom and dad don't really want them back in the house, and you don't really want to be back living with mom and dad either. But the economy has got to get turned around to provide the opportunities for kids. And it's doubly, it's a double problem when you've got these huge student loans that have gotten out of control for so many kids. It's a huge burden, and you don't have the job to try to pay it back. It's a burden for the moms and dads, the families, and the kids. And I think strengthening our economy, providing more opportunities is going to help everybody, especially young people.
I want to ask you about your running mate, Boyd Rutherford. What made you come to choose him to run on the ticket with you?
It's a great question. He and I served as cabinet secretaries in the Ehrlich administration together. We were really best friends. We sat next to each other in cabinet meetings for 4 years. And then he went on to be the assistant secretary of agriculture at the federal level in the Bush administration. He also helped run the GSA. He's got tremendous experience. He's a guy I have tremendous respect for. And we get along really well, and I think he's the most qualified person to ever run for lieutenant governor. He's probably more qualified than many of the people that have run for governor. He and I both have this diverse private sector experience. He's an attorney, lives in Howard County. He's a small business owner. He's got experience at the federal and state level in running government, and he's just a terrific guy. He's an African American, Howard County. He's a USC grad, smart guy. He's working really hard, and he brings a whole new dimension to the ticket. And we come from different places. We agree on a lot of issues, and we think that together we can help change Maryland for the better.
Finally, I want to ask, is there anything else you'd like students of Salisbury or anyone else watching to know about you and your candidacy?
Well, first of all, I just want to again thank you for giving me the opportunity, and such a beautiful day here on campus. We're looking forward to walking around, and we're going to meet with some other folks here on campus in just a few moments. I'm just a guy who's fed up with the direction our state is heading. I didn't really decide to run for governor out of any desire to be something. I just really felt an obligation that I needed to do something, and that's why I stepped up. That's why I started this group, Change Maryland, 3 years ago. And I believe that the people of Maryland deserve to have a real clear choice for a change, and that's what I hope to give them.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to seeing you around today.